Good morning, everyone. We're out in front of our potato patch here and we need to get these potatoes out of the ground right now. On today's video, we are going to clear up some confusing information about when to harvest potatoes and what specific potato plants do. Let's go. So we have had a lot of rain in the last couple of weeks, and just the other day we got 2.5 inches here in East Texas, and it wreaked havoc on my potato mounds. They just kind of sloughed off the sides. They weren't really compacted down too much, and they sloughed off the sides. So that exposed a lot of potatoes. So I need to get them out of the ground immediately, or they're going to end up looking green and not edible, kind of like that one right there. Now, I've read and watched videos on people saying that the time to harvest your potatoes is when they flower out. I'm going to tell you that is not an indicator. It is an indicator in one instance, and I'll tell you what that is. So if your potatoes flower out, because not all potato varieties do flower out, when it flowers out, you can harvest new potatoes. But those potatoes under the ground are not done growing yet. So new potatoes, if you didn't know, they have a certain flavor to them. They're very, very tasty, and they're served in restaurants, but if you harvest new potatoes out of your garden, don't harvest everything, because you'll end up getting a very tiny crop compared to what you could get if you let everything keep growing. So if your potato plant is still looking like this, it's got green leaves and the stems are still straight up and down, it is still putting energy into making those tubers. So you do not want to harvest this one right now. I would wait, unless you've got an issue like us where you've had a ton of rain and you've got potatoes exposed. You can cover them back up if they haven't turned green yet. But if you've got that situation, get them out of the ground like we are going to today. But if you don't, and they're still growing, and they're still green, and the stems are still strong, leave them, because you will get bigger, better potatoes if you do. So for us, we always plant Yukon Golds, and Yukon Golds rarely, if ever, flower out. I've had some flowers, not this year, but I've had some flowers and fruit, the little round tomato looking fruit on them, in the past. And here's why that flowering indicator that's mentioned on some other videos is incorrect. It is because there's a lot of potato varieties that either don't flower or flower incredibly rarely, some that do flower on a regular basis, some that don't flower at all. So you cannot go by that indicator as to when to harvest your potatoes. The best indicator is this. And that's right here. You can see our stalk is leaning over, the leaves are yellowing off, and every other stem or stalk that's grown out from the tuber that I planted here is starting to lean over and die. This is the proper time to pick your potatoes. And it's because these leaves and everything aren't putting any more nutrition back down into the tubers. The tubers have probably stopped growing altogether, so it's time to get this one out. Hi, Garden Katie. So another really easy way to tell is obviously your maturity date. You understand, or you know, when you planted your potatoes, and potatoes mature within 60 at the earliest to 120 days. Usually my Yukon Golds are about 90 days, maybe a little less, maybe 80, and they're right there right now. So your environment is also going to have a lot to do with the flowering out of your potatoes. Some potatoes in certain areas won't flower out at all. So if you're in a warmer environment like we are here in the south, these Yukon Golds never ever flower out. If you plant Yukon Golds up in the north, they may. And I want you to also pay attention to the nutrients in your soil. So if you have soil that's just too high in nitrogen, you're going to get great growth on the leaves and the stems or stalks of your potato plants, but you're not going to get very many tubers. If you saw our video on planting, comparison planting in the ground, potatoes in the ground and potatoes in the containers, you know that we added kelp meal in there for a potassium shot for our tubers to really do well. And we're going to show you that as we dig these up in a second. So just pay attention to those nutrient levels and you should be good to go for growing some great potatoes. Now when we're digging out potatoes, we're just going to use a regular digging fork, but sometimes if your soil is loose enough and nice enough, you can just dig these out by hand so that you don't risk stabbing any of them or damaging any of them with your fork. So we're going to start by doing that. And as you can see, I've got weeds growing in here, and that's actually not a bad thing if it's controlled, but these were helping to hold these mounds together a little bit more, so that's not a terrible thing. So right here you can see we can just pull these out. After you pull your potatoes out, do not take off the dirt. Don't wash these off because they'll stay much longer if you've got that natural coating, that natural dirt still on there. So do not wash your potatoes. So I really like to come in here with my hands first and just dig at the side of these mounds because they should be pretty soft. See, I can just kind of push this whole mound right over and I'm grabbing potatoes because I've just stabbed way too many in the past with a garden fork. So you can leave potatoes in the ground for up to a week and a half or so after the plant has completely and utterly died. And they will stay under the ground just fine. But just be aware that after that point, they'll start to rot. And you don't want that. Or they actually can start growing again and produce another potato plant. If you want that, that's cool. But if you have a situation like mine and you got a lot of rain on the way next week, which we do, you need to get them out of the ground or you're going to lose your crop. So if you have a lot of small potatoes like this, don't leave them in the ground. Don't throw them away. These are great for roasting and they're also great for canning. So let nothing go to waste and save the bigger ones or some of the bigger ones for your chitting potatoes for growing next season. Because you're going to get a much better plant from a larger potato than you will trying to plant these small ones next year. You won't get a big harvest. So we hope that information was helpful for you in understanding when to harvest your potatoes and that it doesn't necessarily hinge on whether they flower out or not. The best thing to do is monitor your potatoes and their maturity date and also look for those yellow leaves and the stalks falling over. Now we have to get the rest of these potatoes out of the ground before the torrential downpours return on Sunday. Go check out this video up here which shows you how to plant potatoes in a container and how to plant them in the ground. And we're going to see which one performs better. Have a great day, have a blessed day, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.